people with a long history, a history of hard work, of persistence, of faith, of opening its big heart to people everywhere. And tonight, the city of Lewiston and the state of Maine begin to move forward on what will be a long and difficult road to healing, but we will heal together. Thank you. And again, my deepest gratitude of all the people of the state of Maine, to these wonderful members of law enforcement who came from all over to help us solve this crime and put closure on this investigation. Robert Card is dead. Now I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Sawchuk.
Thank you.
My apple balls.
Thank you very much, Governor. We truly do appreciate all of your support. I think it's incredibly important that the next person that speaks this evening is Lewiston's chief law enforcement champion, and that is Dave St. Pierre. Dave.
Thank you, Mike. And thank you, Governor, for allowing me this opportunity. Bear with me, please. I certainly did not have much time to prepare a speech here. I want to say to everybody, thank you so much. Our community can now breathe a sigh of relief, as the Governor stated, and I can't echo that enough. Our work, again, is not done here. I was very elated tonight when I got the call from Commissioner Sawchuk advising me of the revelation of what took place and that Mr. Card is deceased and no longer a threat to our community or any other community. I just don't want to forget the families that are grieving and will continue to grieve. I don't want to forget the law enforcement officials that have worked tirelessly throughout this whole event to come to a good conclusion. Our men and women of the Lewiston Police Department, of all of our surrounding agencies. We have with us Chief McGee here from Lisbon, where Mr. Card was found. This is vitally important to all of us that this conclusion came to light tonight. We're gonna grieve for the families that lost loved ones here. We're gonna continue to work. We're gonna persevere, and we become better people for it. Is in terms of working together as teams. We've learned a lot from some mistakes. We've won a lot of accomplishments this evening. Again, I wasn't really prepared for this on a Friday night at 10:30, but I'm very happy to be here and very happy to say the threat is over. Thank you.
Just a reaction from your officers when they got the news of this, your officers were working this case.
Sure. So our officers are being notified now as we speak. Some know, obviously, sooner than others. There are many that are still home. They're home with their families. And I'm quite certain at this point in time, we all know about this. This is something that all of our law enforcement personnel, ours and any surrounding community, has been paying very close attention to in awaiting positive news or good news. And this is by far the best news we've had in quite some time.
Was there any belief at this time that the suspect was dead before finding him, or did this come as a brand new revelation that you never saw coming before this?
So our reality here is that the search has been extensive. It's been thorough. It's been nonstop since the minute we started speaking with you and long before that. So all of these options are on the table, as we knew. We continue to search locations, in some cases multiple times. And we will have more information about exactly how this went down. We're going to have another briefing tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. And I would please encourage you to think about next steps from your end, information that you would find important. And I will say that this is not going to be a long Q&A this evening. We wanted to make sure that we got this information out as fast as possible and as responsible as possible. And what I mean by that is that the time between the notification of the press release and now, there wasn't a lot of details there. There wasn't a lot of details there because we wanted to talk to the victims' families. We wanted to say, this is coming. It's important that they heard that information as close to first as anybody else. And you know who else we called was the family of the suspect. and they lost a loved one in this scenario. And there were many of that family that was very cooperative with us throughout. So they deserve that phone call. So we had those conversations tonight before joining you here. We also got a chance to spend some time with the brothers and sisters of law enforcement and our public safety partners that have been so incredibly helpful over the last few days, to say the least. So, one second. So right here, sir.
Where exactly did you find him and when exactly did you find him?
So at 7:45 this evening is when Mr. Card was located. I won't give you an exact address. It was near the river along Androscoggin in Lisbon Falls was the actual location. Ma'am, did you have a question? Ma'am, did you have a question?
When do you please think he died?
That all remains to be seen, right? So our reality is that we found that body at 7:45 and it's 10:25 now. So there continues to be a lot of work that needs to be done here at the scene with the medical examiner's office. So there's a much more follow-up to what happened. But sir, did you have a question?
Any indication that he had an accomplice and how was he found?
I won't be able to answer either one of those questions at this point. Accomplices and things of that nature. We've had no indication of that since the very beginning. But as we've talked about before, these next steps are going to gives us an opportunity to do things as fast as we can in the sense that we want to provide closure and information, but also slow things down a little bit because we need to look at video evidence. We need to look at the various pieces of technology that are in play here in hopes that that gives us some additional information around some of the things that you're going to be concerned about. Yes, ma'am.
Family members, please.
We understand that he was found at the second section of what he had previously worked. Can you help us understand more? Had you searched previously this recycling center and not found anything? And in addition to that, we understand that possibly he may have recently been fired from this recycling center. Can you come back?
Yeah, I'm happy to take a look at that information in hopes that I can get that back to you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. That remains to be seen. Again, we have attorney generals that we need to work with and other individuals that are in play here. I'm going to take a couple more questions again with the mindset that it's 10 o'clock tonight, and we do want to come back tomorrow morning to have this conversation. Right here.
You had the shelter in place this afternoon. So by this afternoon, were you just looking for remains? Or, how did you make that decision to lift the shelter in place?
Yeah, sure. So I think that that was an ongoing conversation since the minute we actually put that in place. We knew that was an important decision. Certainly from our perspective, it made complete sense to put that order in place immediately based on the violent nature and the traumatic nature of these crimes. And as things progressed over the next few days, since Wednesday to now, we've had a lot of conversations with various town and city leadership, with the governor's office, with Chief St. Pierre, with business owners, with residents, and we have to have that balancing act of pluses and minuses. And we had that initial surge with those communities, and those communities made perfect sense for an order. And as things tended to slow down, we didn't have any immediate threats. Forgetting it, but Commissioner Camuso said that and passed along that actually that hunting restriction has been lifted as well. So the resident hunting opportunity for tomorrow is open.
All right. So there we have it. Let me just, once we get into the hunting news, I think they're probably done with the details, at least for tonight. So what I want to do is go over to the crime chart, and you can see it, hopefully. Sharing it. Nope, I gotta just add it here. And, it was interesting when we were looking at the ascendant, and it was in Gemini, and so many victims, which is one of the things that the ascendant represents. People who are Gemini, they talk with their hands. And so sometimes we don't realize that these folks have to, because they are are deaf, or at least a group of them were. So that definitely showed a profile of some of the victims, and even showed a profile of Card himself. So often, forensic astrologers say, well, we look at the descendant, and the descendant lured for the perpetrator, but really you look at the solstice point, which is the other side, and that can also give you a profile. So it's really both the ascendant and the descendant. So it gave us some clues there. Now, Jupiter in Taurus is representing Robert Card, and it's in the 12th house. So we talked about this last night. Taurus is wooded areas, lots of trees, but we also saw a river as well. So, and then one of the things we also mentioned was the sixth house. Sixth house showed us so many things here. First of all, the first thing we saw was the fifth house lord is Mercury, and it's in the sixth house of work. So that is, people who are in the restaurant, they could have been workers, which we found out later they were. And also he considered potentially his coworkers, because there's that opposition there with the sixth house, as a threat or as an enemy, which we talked about last night. So definitely, when you see so many planets in one house, like the sixth house, automatically you want to take a look at coworkers. You want to take a look at a digital trail that has to do with where he worked, how it might have affected his mindset. So thank you for tuning in, Sharon. And yes, Tanya, since the Ovaid shooting, I think officers are trying to overcome that tragedy and be proactive in incidents like that. Yeah. So the interesting last name we talked about last night, and this was Card. Card is Gemini. So we could get his name from the ascendant. The ascendant is a name, period. It doesn't matter if it's the victims or not. It can show a street name. It can show a coworker's name. It can show a witness's name. And so it has to, however, aspect the ascendant in order, the planet that we're talking about, in order to give the results or give that clue. So, so anyway, let's go over to, I'll do the slideshow. And this was Patrick Dempsey last night. It was, I guess, a couple of hours after we were talking about a famous doctor. And it was like, how does that factor into this? And this was such a great example of different things that you can see from a crime chart. They might not necessarily have to do directly with the victims or the perpetrator, but that, famous actor up there in the 11th house of hopes and dreams and on social media, definitely when you see moon conjunct a planet, it's going to be something that is special, that pops out. Neptune is also film, so famous film actor. And and of course, he started in Grey's Anatomy, which was a hospital. Neptune was a doctor, Neptune. And Virgo can also be healthcare representatives. But, and his name in the show was McDreamy, which would be Neptune. So hopefully you can see what I'm sharing. Okay. Yep. So, yeah, who was he targeting? We believe right now, the people because he was playing cornhole, Robert Card, and it got worse and worse. His health matters, and he stopped hearing, which would be Gemini. So he somehow manufactured this narrative in his head that the people who he was playing cornhole with, which I believe he knew some of those people in those different bars and areas of business, he wanted to get back at them. It seems there was some kind of revenge element. So All right, so let me go over to the next one. Okay, so here's his transits and progressed. And we were just talking about how, my God, like when you, this is typical for a lot of people, they're progressed planets. They end up because the planets, as they, after you're born, depending on how fast they're moving, sometimes they can cluster. And sometimes it's really good. Like often I'll talk about Taylor Swift. She has a bunch of planets in the 11th house of hopes and dreams. She's probably just constantly walking on air. But then sometimes we will have a collection of malefic planets that are in a house and are being affected by a very, very intense transit energy. So for Robert Card, which this is his chart with his progressed planets are inside. The orange symbols are the transit planets. And you can see you have Mars at 28 degrees. That's 2 degrees of the Algol degree, which is the worst point in the zodiac. It's pretty bad. It's addictions. It's doing the work of the devil and not caring, being basically addicted, carrying out these evil things. And so this is conjunct Mercury, and Mercury is in retrograde. It also is the chart ruler. Okay. So this is basically Robert Card. And what is right over his progressed Mercury, which is basically him, Uranus. And that means suicide. So we had a pretty good clue. We were talking last night that there is absolutely a possibility that that would be a route that he would take. And so, so the moon, this was on the 26th. And so we've got other planets here that are all in a cluster. We've got Venus and Moon and North Node. I think we're going to start seeing some clues as to what this means. It seems like from his chart that there is going to be a woman, could be a foreign woman, a woman with a foreign last name, somebody who's or becomes well known from this, might be speaking out possibly. So when you want to try to figure out like, okay, so this is a fugitive, this is his progress chart with the transits on there. Well, where's the police? Because, it's not a crime chart. And so what I do is I look at Aries and I look at Scorpio, both ruled by Mars, which is the police signs. And I know just out of common sense that Mars, well, that's the police, and there are probably a lot of them. So you're looking for a cluster of transit planets because these people are looking for this fugitive. So, and there's a lot of them. There might have even been a lot of confusion because of this square to Pluto. Possibly the investigators were not behind the scenes. Maybe we'll never know. There was some kind of power trip, which is typical in these types of cases. So, yeah. Yes, he did. He thought they were talking about them, and he wanted to take them out. So, can you see the time of death? Well, that's a good question. I think, was it 7:45 p.m. was a critical time period. Let me see here. Okay. So here's the crime chart. And one thing I look at the moon and I look at part of fortune. And often part of fortune is going to show when the police are going to be successful or who in the chart is going to be successful. So, and we knew from what I said last night, I was like, he shouldn't do anything today because it doesn't look good for him, if you remember. So what I was doing was I was fast forwarding the chart, and let's see here. So yesterday we were talking about it, and you can see that part of fortune is moving. And then we want to go to 27th here. Okay. So, I mean, this is 12. No, it was a little bit after that. We could say in the afternoon. I mean, they gave us the time of 7:45 p.m., but here you can see how, if you were to continue to look at Jupiter as the perpetrator, you can see that there's this straight fall down on this hour, which is, in the afternoon, 2 or 3 o'clock. And there is a T square with part of fortune. Part of fortune tells you a lot. So now with, what was his name? Danilo. What's his name? Danilo, the fugitive in Pennsylvania. He wasn't found for 2 weeks, and it was the part of fortune in that chart that gave you an idea of when the police were going to be successful. I believe a part of fortune was conjunct the, I think it was Aries. Let me see here. Okay, I'm going to share it. This is the fugitive in Chestertown. And so it was August 31st. So much Aries there, lots and lots of police. And I mean, just looking at the crime chart itself, it shows that the police are going to be successful because you've got that part of fortune there in Mars. And I would have liked to have seen some type of Virgo, or, I mean, the 6th house is Virgo, but the dog played a big part, the search dog. So it was kind of hard to see that in this case, except for the MC being in Cancer. So Cancer can be the dog, and 6th house can be the dog, the search dog. So anyway, fast forward, it was like 1 week, it was 2 weeks. And you couldn't really see. Mars here would be the police in the 12th house as well as Aries. And it wouldn't be until September 13th. And you can see how part of fortune is really applying to Mars there. So they are going, and there's a really nice grand trine. Uranus at 22, very dangerous person, a man who killed. But Uranus is also the technology. So technology helped them a lot in this case, identifying, where he was at times with that heat-seeking technology. So yes, Cavalcante, thank you. So yeah, territory wars. So yeah, you can see that, and with, oops. Okay, so now we've got, where's part of fortune? It just looks like a standstill, but I want to go back real quick to that day. It was the 25th and 6:56, right? So I guess it was back 1 hour. Okay. So no, that's not right. Okay, there we go. All right, so here's the crime chart for Robert Card. And so Gemini would be in the 6th house of workers, of people who he considered the victims, which would be, workers, people with health issues, and people he considered. I mean, he was sparring in his mind with these people, that opposition there. So to answer your question, you've got part of fortune. Now, remember how I was saying last night, I was a little worried because part of fortune is trining um, card here. And so I was kind of worried about him being able to get away with it. But it can also show, too, that he was successful in carrying out what he wanted to carry out, this crime. So, so then what we want to do is, just, I guess, you can see part of fortune, and it's going around the wheel there. And so you can fast forward, see it just like as of the October 25th, you can see all of the investigators, which is Scorpio, and there's a square there to part of fortune. They're just like, we don't know where he is. There's just a lot of frustration, it looks like. And there's also like a kite, if you can see that, it's kind of pointing down. So it doesn't really look good when you see that kite pointing down like that. It's sort of like, it's not working at the moment. So we fast forward, part of fortune, still in a square with Uranus there. That potentially could be that, the police, you can see how there's an opposition there to Scorpio in the 5th house. The police, maybe their equipment isn't working right, or there's a straight up opposition with Jupiter, which would be card based on the time of the crime chart. So anyway, not to belabor this, we can go 26th, 27th, and there's part of fortune. I'd want to see 22, 26. It's better if it's a terrible T-square there, and really shows gunfire. But you could almost look at that and say, well, who's firing at whom? It definitely shows with Aries at the top there. Now, what the best thing to do really is to go and keep the time. Okay, so we're going to do 6:56. Just keep the time and then fast forward the days. That way it doesn't get confusing. And so there's the 27th today. Okay. So now another thing you could do is you could look at the moon. The moon is starting on the 25th. Okay, with the moon up at the 11th house, and it was sextiling the investigators, but also sextiling Uranus. So may have been a clue about something with regard to suicide, which I talked about a little bit yesterday. Seeing that Uranus is conjunct the ruler of the perpetrator, there is that big possibility. There might be something shocking that he does, and suicide is one of them. So we go to the 26th, which is yesterday, and moon is moving into Aries. And now it's conjunct the north node. And so at 22 degrees, I was looking at this because yesterday, because of all those planets in the 12th house with Jupiter, which represents card. And so all that Aries moon at 22 degrees, it just didn't look like it was his day. I might have even said something to that effect. Notice the T square with Jupiter to the MC to the sixth house. It's that red triangle. It means a stop. So when I saw that, I thought, it doesn't look good for him. It looks like something is stopped for him. And so I would say that looking at the moon and part of fortune is trining Aries, which is success of the police. So keep that in mind. Keep the moon and part of fortune in mind when you're looking at these and fast forwarding the charts. Okay. Hey, Jen, good to see you. And oh, hey there. Nice to see you. And let's see. I think that's pretty much, it with regard to the timing. And let's see. Also, good to see Unsolved Crimes Uncovered. Hope your dad's doing okay. And definitely check out, guys, Unsolved Crimes, a great channel. Was he found on a dirt road near a dumpster? I wasn't getting water so much. He was found near the river at Lisbon Falls. So interesting, whenever I see falls, I think of obviously Uranus because that's falls. It's something way high up. And Uranus was in the 12th house of Pisces. So that might have been a clue for us. So we were seeing that. We were seeing a river. Why were we seeing a river? Uranus. Let me see here. Not that one. Hold on one second. Okay. I think it's this one. Okay. Where am I here? Yeah. So, okay. This is the 27th, the 26th, 25th. Okay. We were looking at, Uranus in the 12th house and it's sextiling Neptune. That's a river. Okay. Why? Because Neptune's water and Uranus is fast moving. So, it looked, the way that they described it, it didn't sound like a large river to me. But according to this, it looks pretty big because Pluto kind of gives it a vast size. So we could probably take a look at where it was. Okay, it's interesting how they mark the shootings in Google, isn't it? But so here's Lisbon Falls here. And yeah, so there's the Androscoggin River. Looks pretty big. Looks pretty big to me. And so there's going to be, here's the nursery, a lot of places that have a Taurus type of, profile to it because Taurus is nurseries and farms. So I believe he was, near a farm, but also near his work, which is a recycling plant. We could even look it up, I guess. Let me see, recycling center, that's Pluto and Mars. That's a lot of metal that's being, completely transformed. So it looks like, now I'm not going to call out anybody here, but it does look like there is a recycling corporation. Not sure if this is it, but it's right near that river. Solid waste department, that's Pluto. Rail trail parking. There's a church. Food city. That doesn't surprise us because Taurus is food. And we also were talking yesterday about Gemini things and how there were twos. So not getting that right now at the moment, but maybe after we hear some of the details tomorrow, it might clear some things up. So I would not be surprised if we saw, maybe two of the same river or two streets. Lisbon Street. Now, Lisbon is also a clue too, because Lisbon is, a famous city in Spain. So, I think of the moon and Neptune being, um, a coastal state or a coastal country, uh, and how it's very well known, which would be moon. So, I'm wondering if that might have been a clue for us that it would be Lisbon. Let's see what else here. Let's look at the satellite and see what that looks like. Let's see here. Yes. Okay. Okay. Interesting. Eda Silva. Something seems fishy. This is a learning process regarding mental health and guns, and nothing from the conference. Zero. Okay. So are you saying that they didn't really announce much tonight? Is that what I'm reading into it? So if Grace was found at a dumpster, um, that would be Pluto. Let's look at, um, okay, just real quick, and then I'll go back to the map. But, here is the dumpster here. That's Pluto. And here's a mini grand trine. And that's also recycling, Pluto, which is the trash, something that we saw with Moscow, Idaho as well. So not only do we see that mini grand trine, but we see this big T square. And Pluto is more or less conjunct the MC here. Pluto conjunct the MC. That's somebody's career. And look at how Aquarius it represents rivers, and it represents suicide. So suicide has to do with where he works. Venus would also be where he works. And so Venus in Virgo, another confirmation that it was somebody's place of work. And it's also a worker too. So I'm wondering if we're going to hear more about a female. Could have been money, could have been like a money spat, but it does seem like there's a female worker. And 15 degrees is it's the assassination degree. So not really sure what that means yet, but I think we're gonna get more information. Okay, so here is the Maine Recycling Corporation. Again, not sure that's it. There's a park. It'll be interesting to see his escape route. And we had said that it was southeast, but we went a little bit farther down here, and it was up here the whole time, which is interesting. But you wonder what road he took. Not seeing really anything here except, Black Moon Lilith really gave us the direction. And why? Because it was on a cusp. I usually look at those planets or points as major clues with regard to the direction. And River Reservoir, cemetery. Yeah. When I first was looking for farms, I was looking in these areas, but it's still not exact because it seems as if this is where he went. And we talked about it last night. I mean, we said 6th house is work, then they should look near his work, because it's a possibility that, that meant something to him. Now, the other thing too is if you look at South Node, their South Node is to leave something behind. So leaving your place of work behind, basically, saying sayonara, which is what he did. So Saturn in Pisces, a major clue because it's the elevated planet. Death by the water. That's what I see. Death by the water, and then he went straight, there's that trine to the sixth house of work. So workplace, look near the water. That's where he will be. And so, and when you see a crime chart and you see the seventh house lord being Jupiter here in the 12th and retrograde, you kind of know, you could say right off the bat that this person doesn't have a lot of things going for him in this case. It's just that this blue triangle is going to be interesting, and we're going to get more on that, meaning there was some type of success. I don't know what it was. Could have been real estate. Maybe he was successful in real estate. He had some kind of, maybe this is a girlfriend who was helping him. There's some kind of success narrative here that I'm not sure about yet, but we will definitely keep an eye out for it. Does the charts show secrets? Oh, yes, it does. Well, the 12th house is the secret, and it's ruled by Mars, which is interesting. Mars could be the police. So they might be keeping some secrets here. I think that's a very good question. And let's see. He had ex-girlfriend. Okay. Yep. Restraining orders. He wasn't in his right mind, as we could see in that pretty bad progressed chart. So, all right, let me go back to that. And let's see. So this was the direction we saw. Black Moon Lilith, where is it? It's in Virgo. And that represents somebody's place of work. It's pretty close to Venus there. So I'm going to say whenever I see that in somebody's chart, and it's, something having to do with the workplace, I want to know who that coworker is that maybe pushed them over the top or just push somebody's buttons. It's very possible. Could just be, it might not be a person, could be some kind of financial matter as well. Okay. And so Lewiston, interesting. Look at how the January 1st chart, which I pulled for Lewiston, would give us a prediction. And look at how part of fortune is conjunct Mars. So Mars being the police in Gemini, that can be two police, two or more police organizations. So it looks like, they had success this year in certain cases. And in this case, a very high profile case. Check out the 9th house, which is the press. This is where whatever planet is, especially on the cusp. That is as strong as you could get. Not so much because of retrograde, but if it was direct, it would be super strong. But it shows that the press is talking about how they were successful in what would happen this year. Let's see here. Yeah. Darcetta says that there's usually a woman involved in these cases, maybe not evil herself, just invested in a relationship. Yeah. Yes, left a suicide note for his son. Suicide note would be, we've got Gemini again. Gemini is a note. Card is Gemini. So whenever you see lots of, Gemini or Virgo, Mercury, Mercury leading or being the lord of crucial signs, then you're looking at notes. Sometimes they're in the second house, and that would be a ransom note. So, yeah. And there's usually a woman involved in these cases, maybe not evil herself, just invested in a relationship. It's true. Yep. Well, I'll take that. Usually, sometimes it's either a woman or it's finances, one of the two, and both are ruled by Venus. So isn't that interesting? So here, this is the chart for Lewiston starting January 1st. And what's so interesting here is that Black Moon Lilith at the top. This is a very, very nefarious person with some kind of career that everybody knows about because it's in the 10th house. Could be somebody famous, but there's some kind of there's some shenanigans. Maybe not, that's not the word. There's some kind of scandal here because of what I circled there. Those are, really, it's a stellium of 4 together: Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Pluto. It looks like there's a whole lot of jealous women, or could be lots and lots of women in the government in Capricorn. So this could be government money too. So something's happening where it might simply be that there is, let me see here. It just looks like government funding is a little off this year for them. So I'm not sure if it actually applies to this case. But I think the biggest clue for them for this chart is that 8th house. Whenever you have North Node, and I'm going to make a note on it so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, hold on one second. All right, hopefully you can see this. This is Uranus in the 8th house of killers, okay? Can also mean real estate, crypto and that kind of stuff. But look at how North Node is here. Very dangerous when North Node is so close to a planet like Uranus. Why? Because Uranus is a shock, a complete shock. 15 degrees is like it's an assassination of some sort. Okay. It's very dangerous. But then you've got the North Node here. And that is an enhancer planet. That's as if you poured gasoline on Uranus. Okay. And then what's in the wings here? Moon. And that's fame, a famous shock. Now, in Taurus, that can mean food. We saw that a lot with the Moscow, Idaho case. Does it have something to do with the Lewiston massacre? I think so, because the 8th house is death. And so, yeah, Taurus can be singers, can be farmers, farms, money. So much. And it's squaring. You can see the little red line here. Black Moon Lilith. It's going to be very interesting to see how Black Moon Lilith shows herself in this case, as well as the Moscow, Idaho murders, because in that case, you had Moon. I don't know if I can draw a moon here. You had Moon right next to, I'll forget that. In the Moscow, Idaho murders, you had Black Moon Lilith and then Moon right next to each other. So it's almost like, a bad mom. It's something bad. In this case, gosh, it is in Cancer. So Cancer just usually could be a psychic, could be, probably not, but Cancer could also be someone who is very well known. At 29 degrees, that's somebody who is trying to do something and isn't doing it very well. It's just a weak, it's almost like a retrograde. So, and here, how about this? There's a trine to Jupiter in the sixth house. The sixth house would be a major house for Lewiston because of the work element. And you've got Neptune at 22 degrees. You know, it's a body of water. It is death by the water. And Jupiter in Aries is somebody who is very angry. So this Black Moon Lilith is kind of combining that energy. Somebody very dark. It might not be another person. Might just be somebody who has these dark feelings, and you would add Black Moon Lilith with Jupiter and Neptune. It can also show a drug addict and can show somebody who has problems with alcohol. So, but that's going to be interesting. We still have a couple months to go until the next Lewiston chart. So we'll see how November and December look and try to figure out exactly what all of this means. So, okay. Yes. Yep. We were looking at his birthday, and the biggest thing really was his transit progressed, which I talked about earlier, and last night really gave us, when you have progressed planets. Let me see where I put it. Here it is. This is his birthday, and all of those planets, you've got Chiron. Chiron is wounds, and with Mercury, that's many wounds or groups of wounds or a group with wounds. Mars is guns. The sun in Taurus, it can mean something about money, but it's mainly right at Algol. So whenever you have a cluster of planets, and it's near a very tough fixed sign like Algol, you are in for some potential trouble unless you go the spiritual route, and you really have to dedicate yourself to just resisting the urges, because these are devil urges. Now, if the same types of planets were closer to Regulus, that would be a whole different story, because that's the best fixed star in the zodiac. So it just depends on where these clusters are. So the third house too, notice, and again, this is his birthday progressed chart. He has Pluto, which is many, many, and it's right next to Saturn, which is bodies. So many bodies, third house in the neighborhood. And if you had this trine, it wouldn't be too much of a big deal, but you have a square with Pluto to that. So it's like Pluto squaring Pluto is just this incredible, it's just an obsessive energy. It's a deep, deep thought. And it's right at the very end degrees of Libra. It's about to go into Scorpio. It would be another couple of years before it goes into Scorpio, though. But yeah, this is many, many bodies, third house in the neighborhood. And you can see this is the police here. So the police are all there. Let's see what else. We've got Black Moon Lilith right on the cusp of the sixth house. So, not to stick up for murderers, but something was going on with his work that not only was he mentally, challenged, but somebody might have been messing with him. So not sure, but it sure looks like that with Black Moon Lilith there. Right. So strong on the sixth house. So now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about this tomorrow. We're going to see what else we can get from the charts after we get some of the updates for or from tomorrow's press conference. And we also have, I'm going to be doing a, just for the members, I'm going to be doing a checklist, a fugitive checklist. So we know who's who and what's what. Mercury's the witness. The sun is the co-ruler of the murderer, all that stuff. And that's going to be on Sunday. So I haven't decided what time yet. So I'll let you know on that. And yeah, there, Cheryl, it was mentally unhinged. And, I always see this as fated types of things, very tragic. And you wonder sometimes why, or maybe you can explain why these murderers are so interested often in psychology. Eighth house matters. They want to know why they're wired differently. They study themselves sometimes. They want to compare themselves against other murderers, and they don't understand. So, something that I think about when some of these cases come in, and they could have been great citizens. They could have had really good, valuable lives, but they went the other way. So was it destined? That's the question. So so I will be seeing you guys tomorrow morning. Thank you for joining me. Please hit the like button and hopefully you'll subscribe and hit the notification bell. You can also go to Amazon and get my book, Forensic Astrology 101 by Val Evans. So, and also check out my Instagram, and that is at Forensic Astrologer. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you again for joining.